Hello everyone and welcome back, Dom here, and this is going to be a sound design video in Cubase. So what I'm going to show you in this video is how to create riser sounds like this one, or like this one, with the included Retrologue virtual analog synthesizer. Now, Retrologue is an incredibly powerful synth. I think we all know that by now, but the reason why I decided to do this video is because I see many producers, and one of the things that they ask me all the time is, how do you find riser effects? Do you buy libraries? Do you buy samples? And of course, using samples for risers, it's a quick and dirty way to get the job done. They work very well, but it's also a great idea to know how to create those risers so that you can customize them to your song, to your productions, and you can create those interesting transition effects. These are not only useful for music, these are also very useful for videographers, for people that do lots of corporate videos or promos and stuff like this. They need transition, they need risers, so you can have a library of your own and you can use it however you want. Now, Retrologue gives you all the tools that you need to create risers like this very, very easily. And today I'm going to show you how I do it and what's some of the methods that I use in Retrologue to do this. And the great thing is, you don't have to spend a dime, it's all included in Cubase. So let's get started, let's create some risers. So let's try and build some risers and maybe some transition effects with Retrologue. Now, one of the most common transition effects, and one of those things that you find everywhere and it's so overdone but it works, is the noise sweep transition effect, and that's extremely easy to do in Retrologue. Let me create this right now. You'll see how quickly we can do this. I'm going to turn off oscillators, oscillator 1, pretty much every other oscillator. I'm just going to turn on my noise generator, right? So if you do this, you're going to get this effect. Okay? Just a noise generator. That's it. Now, all we need to do if we want to create a noise sweep is basically use our filters like that. So now I'm going to take my envelope, give it quite a bit of healthy level right there, and now okay, something like that. I'm going to start with a starting point like this, quite dark, and then move my way forward. So now we just need to make sure we have a very slow attack time. And how slow? It depends on your track. That's the great thing. Do you want it to be fast? Do you want it to be slow? It all depends on your track and the transition effect you're trying to create. So I'm going to go for a slow attack. Let's say around like 1.9 seconds, okay? And I'm going to give it go all the way up with the envelope. Now, we need some release. Let's have this. I mean, if you wanted to cut off that quickly, it's great. If you want to add a little bit of release, you can just add a little bit of release on the amplitude envelope. And then use the release here to shape the release sound. See? This is almost like a tape stop effect. It's really cool. Let's go for a little bit higher in terms of length. Okay, so very, very simple. Now, if I add a little bit of resonance, I get a completely different sound. Now, let's go to the effects and let's add a delay, just a little bit of it, and a little bit of reverb. Let's add like a nice lush reverb here. Okay, and now if I want, I can of course tweak the sustain level. Maybe I want to have the, something like that. Now, if you want to have like a build down, I would just make this even slower. Like maybe, depending on your track again, 6 seconds would be great. Let's try this. So by just changing the attack, decay, sustain, and release, and also maybe the different types, maybe we can go for a different filter type, maybe a high pass filter. You know, you can get so many different effects by just changing the filter type. If I go to the band reject, different sound. If I go to, let's say, like, let's go to high pass and low pass, and let's see what this does. You know, and all these are super customizable. So what I tend to do is I go on record mode in Cubase and start recording some of them with MIDI. You know, I just play them on my keyboard. Maybe I go for a faster one. Or maybe I'll change the filter type. Slow again. Okay, and now I've done this, I can stop recording, I can just render those in place. So I have a shortcut for this, render in place, Shift and W, and immediately, boom, I have my samples right there. Okay, so I can see exactly what I've done, I can chop them, I can start creating a library of sweep effects, of risers, and all these things. Now, this is the most common type of riser, but I want to show you something else. I want to show you a pitch riser, right? Something that is like a nice sine wave that rises and rises, and we can create some nice variations with it. So I'm going to create a new Retrologue. And of course, the best thing is to combine 1 or 2 instances of Retrologue and create some really, really interesting effects. But for now, I'm going to separate them and see what you can do with just one instance. So in this case, I'm going to build something completely different. I'm going to start with just one oscillator with a sine wave. Okay, I'm going to go all the way down the octaves. I'm going to go to, you know, really, really low there. Now, the trick to do nice rises in Retrologue is to use envelope 3, and this is hidden right here. Some people never use it, they never know it's there, but it's actually one of these very, very cool things in Retrologue because it gives you much more control than the regular ADSR that we have, for example, in the amplitude envelope. So why do you need to use envelope 3? Because it has many parameters. It has the low starting point. So how do you start? And then we also have where the final level, which is where we end up. So if I go, first of all, to begin with, if I want to assign this to the pitch envelope, I can just go here, drag it. See, I have these 3 lines right here, just drag them to the coarse value of my oscillator 1. And now I go all the way up with the depth, okay? Now I can set up my starting point with a this low control here, okay? I'm going to set up my attack. How long do I want it to be? Maybe 3 seconds? Let's try 3 seconds. And then I want it to stay up there. See, it's almost like graphical. You can actually see what you're going to end up with. So let's try that. See, and now I have a nice pitch rise of the sine wave. And of course, I might want a little bit of release. Let's see. And here I can set up my ending point. And let's say I want it to be like that. Maybe I want to add a little bit of release. Let's see. See? So now, depending on where I set my release and my ending, my finishing point right there, I can set up how the pitch envelope is going to react when I release the key on my keyboard. See? So now I'm pressing the key. And now I release the key. And we have this very interesting like pitch down effect again. So this is one of the coolest things that you can do in Retrologue if you want to create interesting pitch effects. Now, how can we make this even more interesting? I can go and add another oscillator, right? And in this case, I'm going to go for a square, and I'm going to go for something that's a little bit dissonant, so maybe a cross oscillator. And now, let's say I want to assign this envelope 3 to the coarse again, okay? Let's see what we end up with like that. Now, what I'd really like to do is make sure that maybe that oscillator starts a little bit lower in pitch. So I can just change the offset here and go like this. I'm going to add a little bit of the modulation depth here, but I don't want to make these two exactly the same so that they sound a little bit more dissonant and they sound like they're evolving a little bit more. So I'm going to go to the effects. Before we add the effects, let's see what we have though. Okay, that's really, this gives you even more anticipation. You know, it gives you a feeling of, oh, it's coming, it's great. So now let's go and add a delay there. Maybe a tiny bit of reverb. Okay, and why not add another oscillator, and maybe I can go square and I can make it multi, so I can get a nice width with my sound there. So, and we can go very high detuning, because this is not going to be like a normal synth sound where we want to play melodies on. And again, what I want to do is go to, from my envelope 3, grab those 3 lines and drag them onto my coarse value there. So let's see how this sounds. You know, so it's incredibly fast how you can just, and I kept talking during this, but if you just drag and drop 3 oscillators on the coarse value there and just add the envelopes, you immediately have this effect. And it's just a few tweaks on the envelope 3. Maybe I can start this a little bit lower. If I change the offset, I can have different variations as well. You know, or if I don't want this this kind of pitch down, I can just remove the release. You know, and maybe I also want to remove the release from my amplifier. You know, it depends on what you want to do. But the great thing is, if you start creating your rises and your transition effects using a synthesizer like Retrologue, you are in control of the rises. It's not the sample that's in control of you. Because some people just grab a riser sample and then they try to pitch it up and down or stretch it so that it sounds in sync with their track, but then you lose quality, you lose all this, you know, this low end from this sine wave that we have in Retrologue. If you start stretching it and mangling it, you're losing all this nice low end. So by using a synthesizer to create your rises and, you know, your drop effects and all these things, that's even more powerful, and it gives you more control over your own music, you know. So don't be a slave to samples. That's my suggestion. You know, use samples. I use samples as well, but you might need to dig a little bit into the tools that we have inside Cubase and start creating some cool stuff. For example, I can do the exact opposite thing and go all the way high and change this and do something like this. You know, if I pull down the sustain, you know, I can do all this crazy thing. If I pull the level 4 down, I can get a completely different sound. You know, or up. You know, it's very interesting what you can do with it. The possibilities for sound design are pretty much endless. And of course, you know, if we go again, let's go like this, like what I had before. See, I can just move from one sound to the other very quickly. I can say, well, maybe now I want to, let's create a ring modulation here with oscillators 1 and 2, and let's see how that sounds. And that's going to give me an entirely different sound again. You know, this is an entirely different sound. If I turn off the ring modulation and instead of cross, I get, let's say, XOR. And for this one, we also get, I don't know, something else. Let's see what this sounds. or maybe I want to have cross modulation here. You know, like this, you can create so many different samples that will actually sync with your track, because you decide when they're going to play, because you have control over your keyboard, or you can just draw in the MIDI notes and you can record them and you can have your own personal library. And that defines you also as a producer, because your risers, all the sound effects that you add in a track, this is what basically defines your sound and makes you as a producer and as a philosophy and as a sound unique. So this is a thing to explore. I always do my risers like this. I mean, sometimes when I'm pressed for time, I might use samples and it's all great. I love samples, and sometimes you can find some very interesting things with samples. But if I want to have a sound that I have in mind into my track, most of the times I use synthesizers for this, and Retrologue is a damn good one. So on this video, I just scratched the surface on what Retrologue can do to help you create those interesting risers, these effects, these transition effects, all these things. And of course, don't forget, these are great if you want to create music and you want to create those interesting transitions and you want to have your track sound more dynamic. But also they're great for videographers, for people that do videos and they want some nice whoosh, you know, transitions effects like this. Retrologue has all the tools you need, and there are so many ways that you can do it in Retrologue. Now, in the comments down below, please let me know what other tricks and tips when it comes to sound design you would like to hear. I would really like to do some more videos on sound design and help you create your own sounds and give you some tips and tricks about this, because it's really not hard once you know how to do it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I would really like you to join me on the upcoming videos. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. It really helps. If you found this video useful, don't forget to share it and give it a thumbs up. And until next time, make some great music and some great sound effects.